Greetings to you all. My name is Dr. Frederick Ebot Ashu, Senior Lecturer, Department of Educational Foundation and Administration, University of BERA. I'm equally the President of the Cameroon Council for Educational Leadership and Management Society. I'm sincerely sorry that I was unable to attend to the CCEAM and BERA meeting yesterday due to network issue. Well, I'm here today to present my topic for the BERA SIM meeting. The title of my research is on peace and achieving sustainable development goals. As you can see on this program, the agenda will be I'll talk about the introduction, the research questions of the study. I'll give you the theoretical and conceptual review, research methodology, the contributions to knowledge and an understanding. I'll also emphasize on sustainable leadership in the Commonwealth context, the leadership practice for achieving peace and justice in our institution. That is the goal 6 in the Sustainable Development Goal. Then I'll talk about the leadership practice for advancing the Sustainable Development Goals. Then I think the question section will be sent to me at any time you wish. So I will start with the introduction. I truly honored the Commonwealth Council for Educational Administration Management, that is CCEAM, recommendation as speaker at the British Educational Research Association BERA and CCEAM joint event. As I already explained, the title of my project is Sustainable Leadership Practice for Peace and Achieving Sustainable Development Goals. Among developing countries in the Commonwealth, educational leadership has not been able to capture the political, social, and economic, environmental, and cultural imagination for strategic shifts of attaining the Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. As we all know, much has been written about leadership and leadership development. But peace and peace building, we clearly have a variety of literature. So most recently, people have been talking about peace and sustainable development, but very limited literature about leadership for peace and achieving sustainable development goals. I think that's the reason why I choose to research about this topic. If we look the visionary aspect of leadership, equity, moral and ethical leaders who have sustainable mindset, trained to have system thinking oriented and concentrate on long-term goals without compromising values, principles in managing resources effectively at the grassroots level. That is what I'm calling today as for sustainable leaders. Let us look at now the political, economic, and social environment of life, managing global common problems, such as improving access to quality education, promote good health, well-being for all, achieving gender equality and poverty, hunger, and reduce inequality, decent work and economic development, climate change, and protect the environment, peace and justice, and build strong institutions and create partnerships. These are all the sustainable development goals my study have tried to look and finding ways how we can overcome them. For many more of these problems, as I have tried to understand, those are the sign and qua non can be translated literally as without which not for human existence all over the world. So we realize these problems are eventually in every other countries in the Commonwealth and other parts of the world. So let's look at some of the key players who are working on some of these issues internationally. I'll address the United Nations General Synthesis Report, the Road of Dignity by 2030, Ending Poverty, Transforming All Lives and Protecting Planet, realized in December 2014, represented a key milestone in the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda process for peace building and achieving sustainable development goals. I've equally listed some of the literature which I've discussed about this matter. So the United Nations and the Commonwealth and many other international organizations are advocating for individuals, communities, organizations, nations over the globe to understand that people are at the center of sustainable development, and in this regard strive for the world that is just, equitable, and inclusive, and encouraging them to commit to work together to promote sustained and inclusive economic growth, social development, and environmental protection, and thereby to benefit all. So most international organizations emphasize the need for individuals, communities, and nations to be advocates of tolerance, respect, understanding, moderation, and sorry, respect for dignity of all human beings is critically to protecting peace and prosperity for all, and accept that diversity and understanding the richness of our multiple identities are fundamental to the Commonwealth and United Nations principles. Let's now look at the research question which I'll be addressing for this study. The first one is sustainable leadership in the Commonwealth context. I will also address sustainable leadership for peace and development, then the leadership practice for achieving sustainable development goals. So the theoretical and conceptual review which I've looked into this study are just similarly the same. On sustainable leadership in the Commonwealth context, sustainable leadership for peace building, and leadership practice for achieving sustainable development goals. Let's look at the sustainable leadership in the Commonwealth context. The 52 current members of the Commonwealth nation cover an area of 31.51 million kilometers square on all the continents, with a population of all around 2,067,000,000. Impacts Commonwealth as an organization impacts life and well-being among the Commonwealth countries members. They equally provided with learning materials to become effective peace building and achievement of sustainable development goals. There are models to implement models that restrain peace and the achievement of sustainable development goals in the world. So they also emphasize on quality education of the middle class and an academically able children. Schooling is a straightforward process that leads to academic success, higher education, and entry into middle class occupations. We also have the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. Encourage world leaders to resolve or save free the human race from the tyranny of poverty and to heal and secure our planet. Unequal treatment of members of the various groups is based on human diversity factors such as race, gender, social class, sexual orientation, physical ability, disabilities, moral minority issues, inclusion, and social justice, religion, socioeconomic status, and tribal and national origin. The increasing frequency of severity of natural disasters make the need for skills and strong leadership is crucial to resolve this crisis. We'll also look at the poor continue to suffer disproportionately from inadequate health services, exhibiting their struggle out of poverty. Leaders must understand how boys and girls are actively engaged in construction of their own gender identities and what deemed appropriate masculine or feminine behavior in one context may be wholly inappropriate in another. So let's look at some of the literature I tried to look on sustainable leadership for Commonwealth context continue. So the other problems which I identify in the Commonwealth countries, unequal treatment of members of various groups based on human diversity factors such as race, tribe, gender, social class, sexual orientation, physical ability, disabilities, minority issues, inclusion. I think these we have already discussed. So we need to try to free of fear from forms of violence and feel safe as they go about their lives, whatever their ethnicity, faith, sexual orientation, class, social class, physical ability, disability, or socioeconomic status. So other things that the Commonwealth does is fostering effective accountability and inclusive institution is a decisive challenge across the globe. So partnership will contribute to environmental protection and sustainable development by mobilizing resources, sharing knowledge, promoting the creation of unity and prosperity in the Commonwealth countries. I will now start talking about the literatures are gathered for sustainable leadership for peace building. The key one was the Global Network for Women Peace Builder. And what what are they saying? So they're saying that we should try by all means in facing efforts to improve leadership, accountability, and capacities across the UN system. For sustaining peace requires a broadened understanding of peace building and sustaining peace agenda, including universal relevance and its links to other agendas such as women, peace, and security. So let's look at other literature. I think the same people who are advocating the one about recruiting resident coordinators with the right leadership skills. So before somebody being employed, you must have the right leadership skill set, including acumen to manage complex political relationship and understanding of interactions between peace and security. Development of human rights and humanitarian programming is a key determinant for successful implementation of the peace building and sustaining peace agenda. So it is also hoped that the above observation will serve as a catalyst for deeper reflection on how best to unleash the leadership potential of sustaining peace, both at local, divisional, regional, national, and globally in in the field of peace building. So another aspect of what leadership now required is managed complex political relationship and understanding of the interactions between peace and security, development, human rights, which I've already explained. So let's continue with sustainable leadership for peace building. There is also another key player who is Lederach. 1997, Lederach introduced a framework which with 5 levels of peace building leadership as division, regional, national, and global level. I think this work is actually trying to understand Lederach's models. So, and we propose positive peace as a transcalar peace system. Therefore, it is to build on this model in different forms. So, first, what I've tried to understand Lederach's model. The first is to expand the model from purely illustrated approach to one that can also address dynamics of structural violence at the local, divisional, regional, and national and global level as stated above. And second is a remedy. Lederach's initial privileging of middle out with a parity of esteem for actors and decisions at each scale, which functions to empower those with the most pertinent knowledge, experience, and capacity for action at each specific scale. So what Lederach is saying there is that nations or organizations should actually select leaders who are able to solve community issues at all the different levels as already explained. So I've explained all the literature concerning leadership for peace. I will now address some of the key issues or literature which we are actually research containing leadership practices for achieving sustainable goals. Table 1 below illustrates a study of how sustainable development goals cannot be separated from implementation of relevant policies. In an age of nationalism and conflict and division, inequality and development, upholding human rights, press freedom, and democracy, These are the things which have been sung in the world. So table one, as already explained, we can see how the evolution of the Sustainable Development Goals, initially starting from, I know it started before in China, but I've actually looked at from the year 2000, where the United Nations Millennium Development Goals was created to eliminate extreme poverty as the focus of including 8 key areas and the 21 operational targets. By 2001, sustainability became a specific project covering agriculture, ecological, economic forestry. By 2012, in Rio, two conference governance was considered the fourth pillar of Sustainable Development Summit, covering 4 pillars: economic, social, environmental, and governance. By 2015, the UN Development Summit Sustainable Development Goals were adapted, and the traditional development view of the sided pursuit of economic growth was fundamentally changed. So now let's continue with understanding some of the key aspects concerning leadership practice for our achieving sustainable development goals. The Commonwealth is based on equality of all its members, despite the great equality in wealth, in power, and in experience. So let's respond to the root causes of fragility in most of the nations, such as to create learning materials and training programs to impact the lives of educators and their families and soft skills, and to motivate inadequate effectiveness and inclusiveness of local institutions of this Commonwealth nation facing unique challenges as they adapt to the demands of increasing global economy. So that is why we have the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, also known as the Global Goals to transform the world. They aim to end poverty, hunger, good health, well-being, quality education, gender equality, decent work, economic growth, and reduce inequality, take action of climate change and improve access to health and education, build peace, justice, strong institution, and partnership to achieve peace and prosperity for all, as already explained. So, if we look globally, there is a financial crisis have been experienced in various magnitudes in different countries. It is remains a fact that problems created by the recent financial crisis are still being faced in many countries. So the implication ongoing global political, economic, environmental, and social problems cannot be overemphasized. But the imperative of providing sustainable development for future generations is a major endeavor that we all must contribute towards. So we have learned that leadership in most international organizations like the United Nations and the Commonwealth cares for peace and sustainable development. Partly comes at time in history where humanity as a whole is in search for innovative ways of managing globally shared challenges. I will now look at my research methodology, how I used to the research design and how I collected data to come to my findings. The study employs a qualitative case study research design, enabling the development of theoretical framework during the research process, giving there a little extreme literature to answer the above research questions. The theoretical conceptual framework are mainly based on sustainable leadership, the European managers, and many other literature. Sustaining leadership for peace building. I use the Global Network Women Peace Builder as explained and later and leadership practice for achieving sustainable development goals. There were literatures from United Nations, African Union, and many other literature. So the study used a purposive sampling interview since it was mainly countries within the Commonwealth. Selected in this research are education leaders, senior positions, and highly qualified university students in particular localities working for the purpose of building peace in their countries. peace building and achieving sustainable development goals. So to collect the required data for this study, the researcher employed in-depth interview with references to documentations of information supplied by published authors and other the sustainable leaders for peace building and achieving sustainable development goals. So the data analysis was thematic analysis. Then importantly, the evidence-based research has conducted according to the international standards and approved by BERA. So let's look at the contributions to knowledge. These contributions to knowledge emphasizes my findings, so and my discussions of what I gathered from the interviews and documents. So the study makes a number of contributions to knowledge through the path-breaking empirical research, which extends theory in this challenging topic. The the project addresses an important empirical gap about the major societal challenges, which these are sustainable leadership practices in the Commonwealth context, the leadership practice for achieving peace, justice, and strong institutions, which is the Sustainable Development Goal 16, and leading practices for advancing the Sustainable Development Goals. So we'll start looking now. The first one is a sustainable leadership practice. This study investigates the impact sustainable leadership practice within Commonwealth context in Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, Canada, the Pacific, and Europe. The study identifies a sustainability leadership practice for global leadership, of which I already explained from the literature, the national leadership, organizational leadership, individual, or say grassroots leadership level context. The researcher's sustainability leadership practice framework is below, in tables below, can establish context of sensitive development work, where the learning and well-being of stakeholders in the reform work to achieve peace and sustainable development goals, and put on a center stage guide for educational leaders, development, teachers, implementation in the curriculum, and other improvement programs as intended. So we'll look at some of the key findings and outcomes of this study, which are my contribution of knowledge as concerned to sustainable leadership practices. So as the interviews were said, we tried to understand the key what people understand by leadership, leadership thoughts which came up. There was shared vision for change, coordinate the activities, and foster personal commitment to collective access. Most people in the Commonwealth countries view leadership as an influence process across sectors to make societies better for human and achieve prosperity. Then some of the leadership qualities which were gathered from the interviews and documents include ambitions, accountability, consistency, and intentionality, innovative, work collaborative for change and transformation. We also have sustainable leadership as a thought, that came up in the analysis. So the idea of sustainable leadership, it was said, is to promote the long-term well-being and sustainability of an individual, organization, educational system, and the world. So another thought that came was a process of influence that delivers direction, alignment, and commitment, and aims to address social, economic viability, environmental protection, and social equity. Then some other thoughts were gathered as concerned to sustainable school leadership. It's essential to the academic growth of students and professional growth of faculty and university staffs. Sustainable management came up, a management approach that provides solutions for environmental, social, economic challenges in the world. Sustainable practice in the categories of education, society, environment, and personal life, of managing them in a way that will benefit current generation and the future generation. And sustainable leadership growth came up as a theme that creates value with a long-term preservation and enhance of financial environment, and social capital. So we're looking here that to understand that sustainability, it encompasses, to actually whatever we do, we should try to see about the future generation. Should try to it should be more long term. Then another key term that came up was the sustainable leadership qualities and values and skills. So sustainable leaders must be active listening, telling a lot of good stories and creating shared visions, conflict management, and the capacity to motivate and convince other people. Other key leadership skills and values that came up was making decisions and fostering systematic innovation aimed at increasing the well-being of the community. So the focus on creating long-term lasting sustainable change needed for sustainable future of all stakeholders. So let's start looking now from the global leadership. So the global leadership thoughts which were gathered. Um, so most what they do, they are policymakers development of sustainable leadership programs globally. So policymakers' development of sustainable leadership policies, they practice programs globally. So few organizations were identified like the UN, the Commonwealth, the African Union, Union, the UNICEF and UNESCO, and many other. So we also look at global partnership. Global partnership came up as a theme. I mean, the idea of global partnership is to revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. That nations got to meet. It's important that they come together to resolve some of the problems that we face. So achieve sustainable development goals. So it's a crucial to harmonize three core elements. So to achieving sustainable development goals, every nation or organization or individuals must think about the economic growth, the social inclusion, and environmental protection they have as a nation. So now we're going to start talking now about the national leadership, or say the top leadership. So the national thought, this reflects to what countries needs to put in place, or maybe what they have to do, to achieve some of this, to achieve some of this peace and sustainable development goals. So they must put emphasis on the importance of system thinking. So competency so that everyone understands how their parts are related to sustainability values and behaviors. So they need to foster shared social innovation in conjunction with high quality and systemic knowledge, sharing or retention to support sustainable growth. So there was also a theme on education about sustainable development. National organizations or maybe countries must be educating households and businesses on social, economic, and on an environmental policy, as well as driving these programs and initiatives in their local communities. So, under the theme of education and sustainable development, the development that is geared towards the enhancement of individuals in the social economy and environmental issues, which will also enhance the development of organization and nation sustainability. So we go now to organizational leadership. Organizational leadership, it's what we can identify it in schools or universities or companies. So let's listen to some of the organizational thoughts which we gathered in the findings and the literature. So what they have to do is to support the natural ecosystem as well as extending fellowship with organizations to implement lasting triple bottom line benefits to all stakeholders. They need to integrate pro-environmental behavior, social responsibility, and sustainability-oriented action. They must be able to address complex challenges through system change, ensure future generations have the same opportunities that we currently enjoy. So at the grassroots level, the leadership for individuals and their own thoughts. So what does individuals have to do to be sustainable leaders? They must be able to inspire and encourage subordinates, define the working atmosphere, and align the needs of subordinates and the organization. They must be able to have the knowledge, capabilities, and skills to address complex challenges through system change, ensure future generations have the same opportunities that we currently have, as I already said. If we look a summary of the sustainable leadership practice, we realize that divide societies into four levels, which can be approached with different leadership strategies at the micro to the grassroots leadership levels. So, at the global leadership, focuses on the competency process, the behaviors, and roles leaders must effectively engage in when simultaneously adding diverse groups of people and managing stakeholders' relationship globally across multiple cultures. At the national level, leadership bodies are effective when it is supportive, developmental, appreciative, and sustain organizations. At organizational level leadership, it will focus heavily on companies' vision and strategic plan to develop team members and help them to grow and improve. At individual leadership, or say grassroots leadership, focus on the big picture and on how things are likely to develop fare into future, and they engage with team members on a personal rather than hierarchical level as practiced in some of these developing countries, where managers aim to keep things able, leaders innovate and affect change in their communities. So we'll now look at the sustainable leadership practices for peace building. Is viewed as a process that creates, nurture, and empowering environmental that unleashes the positive energy and potential that exists in people, enable them to resolve conflict and non-violently, and to participate in co-chanting a path towards positive peace attainment. So let's look at some what we gathered as concerning sustainable leadership practice for peace. What I've done in this research is that I've gathered all the sustainable leadership practices. I've already emphasized on the first research question. So we use them and each one on how we can achieve peace in our country, on how we can achieve peace maybe globally, nationally, regionally, in our organizations, and individually. The first one is about share vision for change and coordinate their activities and foster personal commitments to collective success. You see, we have countries like the Commonwealth educational stakeholders. They shared common vision with partners for comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security can sustain to affect change in different countries. So if you look the idea of influence, which came up as a theme, as a subject or theme in the in our sustainable leadership practice, we can use that to improve leadership qualities for educational stakeholders and providing basic services that enhance cohesion and stability, foster social cohesion from enabling communities to influence social norms that achieve unity and prosperity. So, ambition, accountability, consistency, and intentionality, innovative. So, we can use this to promote leadership qualities for peace and justice together with fostering effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions to enable peace, fairness, justice, democracy, and freedoms are common values for humanity. So let's look at work collaborative for change and transformation. So peace building requires educational leader to build meaningful relationships, expand his or her network, develop professional partnership to transform the attitudes, behaviors of locals about causes of conflict. So the idea of promoting long-term well-being and sustainability of all individual organizations, educational system, and the world. So education itself can be best transformed as a long-term goal that contributes to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development at the local, regional, and the global citizenship for all for the long term. So let's look at the next number 6, which is the process to influence, deliver direction and alignment and commitments and the aims to address social, economic viability, environmental and protection and social equity. Sustainable leaders must learn how to influence by being tolerant and respectful. They need to demonstrate understanding of diversity, religious freedom, which are essential to the development of free and democratic societies. So, other ones like prioritizing creating a positive impact on the environment, society, and economy. So, we must, as leaders, to anchor society on its interest rates are as important indicator of microeconomic stability and are critical for economic success and investment certainty. So correlation analysis illustrates that when peace deteriorates, interest rates. So most of the countries which we realize that there were conflicts, they have problems with the currency, uh, with their currency since correlation of analysis illustrate that when peace deteriorate, interest rates, as I said already, become more volatile and unpredictable. So creating current and future profits for an organization while improving the lives. So stakeholders or engage in building prosperity and peace through promoting people and gainfully employed in decent work. So they need to employed or self-employed. When people are not employed, the agenda is always going to violence. So let's look at essential to academic growth of students and professional growth in faculties and in university. So education should develop qualities such as tolerance and respect and appreciation of others, being fair, open-minded, and being able and willing to consider and points view of looking beyond his or her own interests. So, and other leadership, sustainable leadership practices, a management approach that provides solutions for environmental, social, and economic challenges in the world. So we realize that peace building efforts to manage, mitigate, resolve, transform central aspect of the conflict through official diplomacy as well as through civil society and peace process and informal dialogue negotiations and meditations are very required. So sustainable practices in the categories of education, society, environment and personal life for managing them in a way that will benefit current generation and future generation. This include what we need to do is including developmental plans into teaching and learning. For example, environmental issues, climate change, disaster management to education must change to create peaceful and sustainable world for the survival and prosperity of current and future generation. We have the number 12 here. It is about exerting influence across sectors to make society better for humanity. So Commonwealth, UNESCO's, and many other international organizations, they actually work across multiple sectors such as human rights, social justice, gender equality, environmental issues, empower nations and communities, improving youth and peace process. So these examples, we all are obliged to follow some of these good food. They also have process of decision making concerning sustainable development and individuals to make their own informed sustainable choices toward more inclusive and resilient societies. So we continue with furtherance organization or societal objectives at the macro level. So peace building objectives must address the function and structures of educational, of emotional conditions and social psychology, social stability, rule of law and ethics, and cultural sensitivities. So if we understanding context of operation of working on to understand people and operating context. So findings with appropriate balance between internal and external security, guarantees of understanding the context of conflict, crisis and stability, and accessing the immediate and medium-term recovery of peace-building requirements. So another key aspect that to create value with long-term preservation and enhance financial, environmental, and social capital. What the leaders have to do, it's the critical sustainable practice to include enabling human capital with the care of stakeholders and fostering ethical values, norms by altruism. It's so important for a nation to achieve peace. So we go now to look about this idea of active listening, storytelling, creating shared vision, conflict management, and the capacity to motivate and convince other people. So what leaders have to do is to help ensure mutual understanding during conflict resolutions, be mentally present, listen attentively, and clarify what you've heard, and focus on both facts and feelings, reduce tensions and defensiveness, and allow conflicts to resolve more effectively. So, making decisions and fostering systematic innovations aim at increasing well-being of the community. So we can use this, and how can we project it? By training on peace-building competencies and to create learning peace space that was inclusive and transforming native pedagogy, our innovative pedagogical approach that empowers are so very important. So we go now to the idea of balancing both pressure of short-term goals and priorities and focus on creating long-lasting sustainable change needed for sustainable future of our stakeholders. People often describe sustainable development as requiring a joint and long-term outlook by society that integrates social, economic, and environmental issues. So leaders work collaboratively for change and transformation. To achieve this, peace leaders seldom work alone as change agents in the transforming people with the power of influence can ensure groups terminate and conflict or many present people from taking actions that may lead to conflict. So the last one, another the 20th year to delivers direction, alignment, and commitments to address social, environmental, economic issues to create a better world for all. So the mission of Commonwealth and United Nations Office for Project Service is to help people build better lives and to help countries achieve peace and sustainable development. So the list go on and on. So using management styles, which we found very appropriately as a sustainable leadership quality, um, we've realized that in so many developing countries, an autocratic leader, centralized power and decision making in himself. Participative or democratic leaders decentralize authority, and a laissez-faire leader can help in promoting peace. This reduces poverty and prevent conflict in turn, and translating a healthier business environment. You know, diverse stakeholders to take corrective and transformative actions for sustainable growth. So to do that, typical successful multi-stakeholders partnership is made up of investors, employees, customers, suppliers, communities, government or trade union, association to promote peaceful and inclusive societies. So be the change and agent and become the key players in bringing about change to business and society as a whole. So educational leaders and teachers as key agents to bring about transformating change through their role as agents of peace. Young people and women equally have served as positive agents of change in addressing peace building challenges and growing societal issues. So, the idea of foresight thinking, strategic management competencies, which is very required in sustainable leadership. So, good leaders appreciate the opportunity to practice the skills of negotiation and collaboration and strategy development in a complex environment. So let's try to look down at the global leadership. What global leadership now, the competency we address on global leadership. So policymakers' development of sustainable leadership programs globally. So these policies developed globally have helped humankind learn to live in harmony with life and earth by respecting the land, the oceans, and to respect of human rights and the sustainable development goals on eradicating poverty, promoting gender equality, and ensuring healthy lives and quality education. The next sustainable practice under global leadership, policymakers' development of sustainability leadership policies, practices, and programs globally. So we discussed about organizations like UN, the Commonwealth, the African Union, and the UNICEF, UNESCO. So these organizations are mostly encouraging scholars and practitioners and policymakers. They would need to speak about implementation challenges to designing and resilient sustainable peace learning programs. So leaders from diverse sectors, such as the young global leaders, can play a vital role in promoting participation, diversity, and inclusion in the development of different learning programs. So let's see what these policy efforts to involve communities, develop organization capacity, and encourage widespread of adoption. So the UN, as an institution or as an organization, civil society working group, developed the UN system-wide community engagement guidelines to further encourage the UN field presence to build partnership with civil society. So the global-based approach seeks to empower local community groups and institutions with policies expanding their direct controls over investment decision, project planning, monitoring, and evaluation. So let's talk about the number 28, tackling the global problems like access to quality education and peace development in most of our Commonwealth countries. The new Agenda 2030 recognizes the need for promoting quality education, especially for girls and other disadvantaged children, education for peace, inclusive societies that provide equal access to justice and that are based on respect for human rights and democracy. Yeah, the 29 aspects of our leadership practice contribute accordingly to create cooperative success and sustainability in the long run. So if we try to do this, ethically business behavior remains good practice, regardless of context, and can contribute to providing jobs, economic opportunity, respecting rule of law, as well as international labor and environmental standards, exposing principles of corporate citizenship, conducting risk assessment unique to the political, environmental, and conflict as affected regions for broader peace building. So, if we want to revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development, so we must encourage and promote effective public, public, private, and civil society partnership and building on experience and resource strategies for partnership. So it is crucial to harmonize three core elements: the economic growth, social inclusion, and environmental protection. You see, they interlinkage. The reason why it's important, they are interlinkage and integrated nature of the sustainable development goals are all crucial importance in ensuring that the purpose of the new Agenda 2020 is well realized. Please, we'll now go now on the national leadership, or say top leadership. What top leaders, like presidents of nations or maybe ministers, controlling education, uh, economic, financial, situations of nations. For the number 32, they need to must put emphasis on the importance of systematic thinking, competency, so that everyone understand how their paths are related to sustainable value and behaviors. So over the decades, the UN has helped especially to end numerous conflicts, often through actions of the Security Council. So the organ with primary responsibility under the United Nations Charter for the maintenance of international peace and security. So we need to look at the 33, which is foster shared social innovation in conjunction with high quality and systematic knowledge sharing of retention of support sustainable growth. School leaders have four basic needs in order to feel secure and engage at work. The idea of trust, stability, compassion for improving access to technology, and knowledge is an important way to share ideas and foster innovations in every country or national or organizations. Then educating households and businesses on social, economic, and environmental policy, as well as driving these programs and initiatives in the local communities. School leaders integrate corporate, social responsibility and sustainability practices into their strategies to enable peace and sustainable development to flourish. So we look at the idea of the development that is geared towards the enhancement of individuals in the social, economic, and environmental issues, which will also enhance the development of the nation, and such development should be sustainable all over the time. So professional principles for ethical leaders. So we now need ethical leaders in education, include those selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty, and leadership. Personal values of ethical leaders in education include the most educations now need people with trust, wisdom, kindness, justice, service to encourage optimism. We now jump now to organizational leadership for achieving sustainable development goals. So the idea of support the natural ecosystem as well as extending fellowships with organizations to implement lasting triple bottom line benefits to all stakeholders. Sustainable human resource management, as example, contributes to developing an influential organization culture. Job security, health promotion, flexibility, participative leadership, sustainable competitive advantage, a value added economy, and self responsibility and work life balance. So, the idea to integrate pro environmental behavior, social responsibility, and sustainability oriented actions. The origin of the inequality comes from various factors, such as gender, social status, economy, race, and cultural identity. So, if the idea of having require ethical principles, moral behaviors, and altruism in identifying the need to conduct all decisions making and management activities. What is important here is the importance of intangibility. Cultural heritage is not cultural manifestation itself, but rather the wealth of knowledge and skills that is transmitted through from one generation to the next. Then sustainable human resources management is required for educational leaders to focus on the satisfaction of all stakeholders. The reason why I'm asking this is because human resources management can contribute to organizational sustainability in the following aspect: organizational change, value and behavior, workplace systems and institution. The ideas recruitment and awards, professional development and organizational training. We have educational raising capabilities. So let's see how we can pay more attention um to the needs of employees and society related with economic, environmental, and societal factors. What we need to do here is to promote the development of knowledge, skills, understanding, values, and actions required to create a sustainable world, which ensures environmental protection and conservation, and also promote social equity and encourage economic sustainability. Then to cultivate a sustaining organization culture that benefits of strong values and a shared vision to support the ecological conversation and cultural heritage preservation that can be transformed from this generation to the next. Educational leaders, peace builders practice their affiliative leadership can effectively build trust and create a safe, positive work environment that encourage teams to share ideas more freely. So, able to address complex challenges through system changes. So, system leadership in peace building involves building and mobilizing alliance of diverse stakeholders around the shared vision for systemic change. Then issue, ensure future generations have the same opportunities that we currently enjoy, and how members or leaders in the Commonwealth are doing. Educational leaders believe in active tolerance and that enhancing a fair and equitable distribution of opportunities and resources today means better and more equal opportunities and outcomes for the future. So we also look at the individual leadership practices for achieving peace, which is part goal 16 in the Sustainable Development Goals. And we discuss in our leadership, sustainable leadership practices that um, the idea to inspire and encourage subordinates to define working atmosphere and align to the needs of subordinates and organization. You know, peace education is required because it's transformative education and promotes a culture of peace. It's essential, transformative, and cultivates the knowledge, behaviors that, in the first place, have they are created to exacerbated violent conflicts. So we look at the sustainable leadership skills or practice, have the knowledge, capabilities, and skills to address complex challenges through system change. Peace education, will offer an analysis of conflict, examine the role of ethics, support the learners to respect and appreciate others, themselves, and human beings. So ensure future generations have the same opportunities that we currently enjoy. So globally competent people are engaged to improve living conditions in their own communities and also to build more just, peaceful, inclusive society and national and international level. So we now go to sustain themselves and others as they pursue deep learning as their central moral purpose in their schools. So educational leaders reveal that social entrepreneurship is practically a way to build peace in local communities and in the world. So let's look at the sustainable leadership practices to create and maintain conditions under which humans and nature can exist in productive harmony to support present and future generation. We gather that being a good leader means open to new ideas, possibilities and perspective, and understanding that there is no right way to do things. What about educational leaders and team members should co-design, co-create social innovation for long-term sustainable benefits for the community? So I realize that educational leaders contribute to environmental protection and sustainable development by mobilizing resources, sharing knowledge and improving lives, fighting inequality and promoting environmental sustainability. Then the last one here is have a great characters and managerial traits that enable him or her to lead with empathy. For for sustainable development to be achieved, it is crucial to harmonize three core elements: economic growth, social inclusion, and environmental protection. I hope we've gathered quite a lot about sustainable leadership practices for peace building. We now look at the summary of Table 3 above again divides society into four levels, which can be approached with different leadership practices for peace building at the macro and the grassroots leadership level. So the global leadership for peace building constructs play within peacemaking and peacekeeping with international and local partners. At the national leadership focus on high-level negotiation emphasis ceasefire led by highly visible single mediators. Organizational leadership teams can be reached through more resolutions oriented approaches such as problem solving workshops or peace commissions with the help of partial insiders, prominent individuals in the society. Then the individual grassroots leadership level, however, represent the majority of the population, can be reached by a wide range of peace building approach such as local peace commissions, community dialogue projects, or trauma healing and leadership training. So these four levels of leadership practices for peace building advocacy have been stretched at grassroots to international leadership level and thereby conceptually links to the debate of global civil society. We now go to the last aspect of our research question, which was on leadership practices for achieving sustainable development goals. And we gathered that the leadership practices for achieving sustainable development goals at global leadership, at national leadership level, organizational leadership, and at individual leadership, or say grassroots leadership level, are seeking to end poverty, hunger, inequality, promote quality education, peace, justice, which you already seen, take action on climate change and environment, improve access to health, and build strong institutions and partnership, and more to a large extent depend on sustainable leadership. So it's all the same things, which using some of the sustainable leadership practice and what you can use some of this sustainable leadership practice in achieving sustainable development goals. I will talk mostly on the goals on how to achieving most. I will emphasize more on how to achieve the sustainable development goals. So the first one there was about share vision for change. If we look here, in every international organization in the world has a strong leadership role, globally and nationally, in implementing the Agenda 2030 for the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which address economical, environmental, and social impact, and are designed to form a blueprint for good growth and individual organizations. We also see about the idea of influence process across sectors to make societies a better and humanity and achieve prosperity. So the idea how to achieve that is to develop local sustainable development goal strategy will help us consolidate a sustainable administration model where social justice, economic growth, and strengthening of institutions can be achieved. Then the idea of ambitions, accountability, consistency, and international innovative. So you see that what the Commonwealth leaders they are doing to achieve that. So good leadership qualities can be applied to an organization or business to achieve sustainable development goals. Are are a global call of action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that all people enjoy peace and sustainable development. So, the idea of working collaboratively for change and transformation. So, we realize that the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals provide unprecedented and invaluable opportunity in the direction of sustainable in the Ooh. So, work collaborative for change and transformation. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals provide an unprecedented and invaluable opportunity in the direction of global transformative change. What about promoting the long term well being of sustainability of an individual organizations? What we got to do here is the transforming of our world, the 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development. It's a plan of action for people and the planet for prosperity and happiness. It also seeks to strengthen universal peace and larger freedom. So the idea of process of influence that delivers direction and alignment. For sustainable development to achieve, it is crucial to harmonize three core elements, which we've already talked about in many occasions, about the economic growth, the social inclusion, and environmental protection. So prioritizing creating positive impact in environment, society, and economy. Here, the socioeconomic development and increasing income are important aspects for sustainable development goals in several countries, regions, and social groups. So, educators highlighted that eradicating poverty and transforcing equity are on the top priority for achieving sustainable development goals. Then, what about creating current and future profit for organization while improving the lives? So, we need to buy from sustainable brands, support local sustainability charities and initiatives. So, we need to use less energy in the homes and recycle more as part of ways with single use of plastic. So essential to the academic growth and students' professional growth in the faculty. Quality education, which is the goal 4, is a key to achieve the sustainable development goals. UNESCO have highlighted it is the most effective way to meet all the sustainable development goals. To act towards increasing numbers of students, academic staff, and stakeholders believe that universities should address issues of sustainability. So, a management approach that provides solutions for environmental, social, and economic challenges in the world. So, business decency, human rights, mutual benefit, and protect the future. Create an action plan for your sustainability strategy. Develop the skills to lead change. Our unique program for achieving sustainability can help you get measurable goals and navigate policy complexity. So let's look at the sustainable practice in categories of education, society, environment, and the personal life by managing them in a way that will benefit current generation and the future generation. So these things sit well in the goal 16. It's about promoting peace and inclusive societies, providing access to justice for all, and building effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. It is about exerting influence across sectors to make societies a better for humanity. The Sustainable Development Goals formulated by the Global Goals ask for actions on the micro level organizations and the macro level networks industries. To achieve these goals, to achieve global vision for better world, they set out ambitions, goals, and targets for every aspect of the planet Earth. So furtherance organizations or society objectives to macro level. This involves targeting the most vulnerable, increasing basic uh, resource and service, and supporting communities affected by conflict and climate-related disasters. We also now have to look at understanding the context of operation and working to understand people and the operating context. So achieving the sustainable development goals requires a shared understanding of goals to be achieved, including the complex interactions between systems, as well as require leaders who are transcended physical boundaries and social, cultural, and political barriers. So we also have to create values with long-term preservations and enhancement of financial, environmental, and social capital. Here we have to consistently utilize metaphors and storytelling in their efforts to be more convincing and empowering, continues to drive and codify the state of the act, effective partnership practices while building up partnership enabling a co-system through training. So leaders who active listening and storytelling, creating shared vision and conflict management, and the capacity to motivate, convince other people. You know, through this, we can cross-cutting key competency for achieving sustainable development goals and promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization and foster innovation. So leaders who are making decisions, fostering systematic innovation, aim at increasing well-being of their community. Educational stakeholders should focus on ethics. They should focus mostly on ethics, human rights, society, economic, environment, and corporations on delivering goods and services in a sustainable manner. Then the idea to balance both pressure of short-term goals and prioritize and focus on creating long-term sustainable change needed for sustainable future of all stakeholders. See, in delivering on the sustainable development goals requires leadership, transformational and inclusive leadership. Collaboration plays an important role in achieving sustainable development goals as explained. So leaders who work collaboratively for change and transformation. And an individual can contribute to sustainable development goals in so various ways, such as by wasteling less food, helping people around you, not wasting water, or creating new jobs opportunities for people and avoiding products that are harmful to the environment, and recycling and buying energy efficient appliances. So those are some key aspects to in achieving sustainable goals. So deliver directions, alignment, and commitments to address social, environmental, and economic issues to create a better world for all. So we need to use of environmental friendly fuel. It's an example, and use for renewable resources and recycling, use of the input efficient technology. Using management styles that provide solutions for environmental, social, and economic challenges in the world. So the transactional and transformational leadership approach are especially relevant to the complex global challenges so facing us today, such as poverty, hunger, and human health and peace and justice. So diverse stakeholders to take corrective and transformative actions for sustainable growth. What they have to do is to save electricity. Institutional, organizational leaders must save electricity by using energy efficient products and recycling of plastics, glass papers, etc. Do not waste paper when it's not needed. While printing bills online, donate things you don't use to people who need them. Support local farmers and don't waste food. So we go now to the 23rd point. Be the change agent and become the key players in bringing about change to the business and society as a whole. How can this help us? All stakeholders, government, civil society, and the private sector and others like students, teachers, and school leaders, local communities, trade association, board of directors, people, agencies, non-profit, and NGOs are expected to contribute in the realization of the peace agenda. Foresight thinking, strategic managing companies stop the degradation of the planet, natural environment, and we need to build a future of which humans live in harmony with nature. So we now look at some of the global leadership aspects. And in doing this, we look at the global leadership competencies for sustainable leaders. So the policymakers' development of sustainable leadership programs globally. So policies for sustainable development, the foremost policy is to reduce poverty, removal of subsidies, market-based approaches, economic incentives, public awareness, participation of global environmental effort, and trade policy. So policymakers' development of sustainability leadership policies, practice, and programs globally, as is done in the United Nations, Commonwealth. They are adapting policies which increase productive capacities, productivity, and productive employment, financial inclusion, sustainable agriculture, reiterate the improved importance of human resource development, including training, the exchange of experiences of expertise, knowledge transfer, and technical, provide platform for research and development relating to the sustainable goals adopted by all United Nations members. So on the 27 points of the sustainable leadership practice at the global level, so education is the key that will allow many other achieve sustainable development goals. When people are all able to get quality education, they can end poverty in all forms everywhere, end hunger and achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture, ensure healthy lives and well-being. Then the 28th aspect, how can we, if we follow the Agenda 2030, aims to promote co-learning and address scientific discipline to better incorporate potentially divergent stakeholders' views and values. So develop quality, reliable, sustainable, and resilient infrastructure, including regional and trans-border infrastructure to support economic development. Then the 29th aspect in the global leadership. So revitalizing the global partnership for sustainable development is so important. In order to reach these goals, governments, the private sector, academics, and citizens must work together. So the 30th aspect, which is to revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development goals, if this is well achieved, it will help to promote inclusive and sustainable economic growth, employment, and decent work for all. The goal 8 is important in promoting inclusive and sustainable economic growth. Then the 13.1 aspect, system thinking is its competency, the ability to recognize, the understand the relationships, to analyze complex systems, to think of how systems are embedded within different domains and scales, and to deal with uncertainty. So the number 32 here, the number 32 here, it's understanding the nature of why situations are the way they are and how to go about improving results. So historical perspective is important in understanding evolution of situation in identifying patterns and behaviors over time. Then the 33 aspects of the global leadership. Social innovation refers to the design and implementation of new solutions that imply conceptual process, product, or organization change, which ultimately aim to improve the welfare and well-being of individuals and economy. So we now go to the 34 aspect. This 34 aspect will help in progress. Progress had been made in poverty reduction, material and child health, access to electricity and gender equality, but not enough is to enough to achieve. In other vital areas, including reducing inequality and lowering carbon emission, tackling hunger, progress had either stale or reversed. The development that is geared towards the enhancement of individuals in the social economy and environmental issues, which will also enhance the development of the nation, such as development should be sustainable over time. So we'll see that if we adhere to that, it also seeks to strengthen the universal peace in larger freedom, end poverty in all forms everywhere. It aims to end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture, ensure healthy lives, and the importance of supporting developing countries in their practice and sustainable use of national resources. So we now shift now to organizational leadership, and the 36th aspect there, to create action plan for your sustainable strategy. We need to develop the skills to lead change in ways that enhance rather than degrade society and the environment. And to encourage corporate social responsibility can help improve various aspects of society as well as promote positive brand image for organization competency. So the 37 aspect of organizational leadership, it applies fundamentally principles of ethical leadership, such as character, integrity, altruism, collective motivation, and encouragement, selflessness, integrity, objective, accountability, openness, honesty, leadership. Personal values of ethical leaders in education include trust, wisdom, kindness, justice, service, courage, and optimism. So the 38th aspect, sustainable human resources management contributes to developing an influential organization culture, job security, health promotion, and flexibility, participating leaders, and so on. We now look at the 39 values as seen on the screen. The acknowledgement and conversation of diversity is an important aspect, and the 40th aspect, to tackle problem related of unemployment. So it's a responsibility for us to in building institutions that follow strong governance, climate change, soaring debt, energy, and so on. Then the 41 aspect, education for sustainable development, consequently promotes competencies like critical thinking, imagining future scenarios, and making decisions in a collaborative way. It also aims to provide equal access to affordable vocational training and to eliminate gender and wealth disparities and achieve universal access to the quality of higher education. Then the 42 aspect, we can see that capacity building activities can include leadership development and planning for future collaboration. At an individual level, can consist of training and mentorship. Organizational capacity building activities need to focus on a broader scale of capacity building is considered as a key issue for a range of areas such as quality management system, environmental management system, and so on. So the 43 aspect, transformational leadership also always improves upon the company's or organization conventions and motivates employees to grow, further develop their skills. Then let's look the last one, which is the individual leadership at the grassroots level. The 44 aspect of sustainable leaders combines these skills as a new way with that explicit goal of creating change on complex systematic issues like poverty, inequality, peace and injustice, unemployment, gender inequality, climate change, war, and instability, population growth. So now the 45 aspect, promoting the planet, halting climate change, and promoting social development without endangering life of the earth and having anyone behind. This concept seeks to cover the present needs of uh, without compromising resources for future generations. Then the 46th aspect, these goals ensure that all girls and boys complete primary secondary school by 2030. It also aims to provide equal access to affordable vocational training, which is becoming very popular in most Commonwealth countries, and to eliminate gender and wealth disparities with the aim of achieving universal access to quality higher education. Then for the seventh aspect of sustainable leadership, it strives to understand, appreciate, and sustain the natural environment gives as a wealth service that are difficult to measure in dollar. So natural areas help clean and our air, purify water, and produce food and medicines, and so on. So the 48th aspect, of sustainable development goals aim to transform our world. Reinforcing global competencies is vital for individuals to strive in a rapidly changing world and societies to progress without leaving anyone behind. And the 49th aspect, which is stronger partnership, it's the Sustainable Development Goal number 17, which contribute to environmental protection and sustainable development by mobilizing resources, sharing knowledge, and improving lives, fighting inequality, and promoting environmental sustainability. Then the fifth year, of to have a set of personal characters of managerial traits. So leadership traits are the personal management skills, personal qualities, and technical expertise a person requires to lead effectively in the workplace. So effective leaders have leadership traits such as accountability and adaptability, confidence and creativity, and empathy, along with positivity and team building skills. So let's try to summarize the sustainable leadership practice for achieving sustainable development goals framework with under the four levels. So from the findings and the discussion, we have gathered that global leadership comes from supranational institutions like the Commonwealth, NATO, global funders like the World Bank, IMF, supports peace and sustainable development goals organization, global state powers like the USA, China, and Russia, and bilateral agencies supporting peace and sustainable development campaigns in the world. So national or say top level leadership, the political, military, and religious leaders from both government and oppositions, or say represent themselves as such with high visibility in most of the Commonwealth countries. So at the regional leadership are governmental officials, former leaders in regional organizations in education, health, business leaders, and prominent people in networks, groups, and organizations. And we have examples like the African Union, European Union, ECOWAS, regional level foundations. We have like African Development Bank, Asian Development Bank, etc. At the organization leadership, we realize that this is exercised by leaders respected in different sectors, e.g., government officials, companies, ethnic and religious leaders, academic and intellectual humanitarian leaders, and NGOs. So at individual leadership or grassroots leadership, represent local community leaders, leaders of indigenous NGOs, local health, education leaders, and refugee camps, etc. So we'll talk now about the limitations which are encountered and suggestion of further research for this study. This case study may be the first that examine the relevance of literature on sustainable leadership practices for peace building and is presently conceptualized and explore how leadership practices could be implemented for achieving sustainable development goals in the Commonwealth context. You see, more future research is needed since the qualitative analysis is based on case study within the Commonwealth country, in Africa, Asia, and Caribbean, Canada, the Pacific, and Europe context only. Thus, the results may not be generalized other area in the globe. Future studies may include additional case studies for comparison. In particular, we hope, or I hope, further research may uh, explore sustainable leadership practice for achieving peace and sustainable development goals in different developing countries and setting for further theoretical advancement. Additional upcoming studies can look on sustainable leadership practice in achieving peace and sustainable development goals in both developing nations within the Commonwealth nation. And lastly, prospective studies may advance the theoretical advancement in multidisciplinary fields of sustainable leadership practice for peace and achieving sustainable development goals globally to broaden our limited knowledge of this thing. I've provided the references here which I've used for this study. I wish they will help further your understanding of this work. I thank you all for your kind attention, and I'll be responding to questions if you kindly send them to me. And thank you once more for BERA and the Commonwealth Council for Educational Administration and Management. I sincerely thank you for this opportunity, and I hope this study will give an advancement in this area of leadership for peace and achieving sustainable development goals. Thank you very much for listening and your attention.